Welcome to the Warrior Legacy Network, where we cut through the noise and talk about what really happens when the uniform comes off. This is about veterans guiding veterans and great Americans who stand beside us, sharing lessons learned, mistakes made, and victories earned, so the next generation doesn't have to figure it out alone. The mission doesn't end with your DD-214, it just changes.
Well, it's just like the Blues Brothers. We're bringing the band back together. My brother from another mother, Mr. Riccoh, how you doing?
Zach, as always, great to work with you, brother. It's how am I doing? I mean, we could cover a whole lot of terrain talking about what's been going on, but more importantly, the mission that you've now have us laser focused on is incredible. It's been quite a journey, and I've learned a lot in the couple of years that I've been in the retired ranks. So I'm sure we'll dig into that during this podcast.
Well, let's start off right at the beginning. I called you Mr. Player, not Colonel Player. The last time you and I got a chance to be on a podcast together was when we were doing our Warriors Voice podcast that we've kind of retired and now moved and changed a little bit. So why don't you take us from the last time we did a podcast together when you were still the commanding officer at Headquarters and Support Battalion MCRD, and take us through your transition out, kind of what you did when you got out and kind of what you're doing now.
So Zach, I never give advice. I will share lessons learned. And one of the most valuable things that I learned during transition was that I didn't give myself enough runway. The Marine Corps had a vote. My honorable service was complete. And I don't know if I was in denial or slow rolling or whatever, but I didn't have enough time to unpack transition the way, hindsight gives you perspective. The services provided at Parris Island were tremendous. I had the latitude as a commander to go and attend classes as appropriate. But I don't think I fully understood the gravity of, taking off the uniform full time and putting on civvies on day in, day on, stay on, 24/7.
Let's pause there real quick if you don't mind. TAP,
Okay.
Transition Assistance Program. Let's talk about it. I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly, kind of everything in between. What was your experience like?
It's a little blurry because there was so much. It was all this information nonstop, and a lot of great information. And even for a colonel, it was overwhelming. So I can only imagine what it was like for junior Marines, sailors and civilians in the class. Great information, but just so much. And, Zach, and I look at it in reflecting, doing some self-assessment. In boot camp, there was a lot, but it wasn't in 2 or 3 days. We were in boot camp for 13 weeks, taking this clay of a civilian and molding it into a Marine, to locate, close with, and destroy the enemy. I feel transition could be a lot similar, whether it's 13 weeks or, 26 weeks or whatever, it needs to be more than just, a few classes during the week.
The adult learning model is not one that you just sit there and look at PowerPoint slides that someone's reading all the letters to you. It's more focused on experiential, small bite-sized pieces, putting that stuff together. And that's been a common thread that I've heard with a lot of other veterans that have recently transitioned, that the TAP content in the TAP program is great. It's just the way it's delivered is really hard to capture.
Yes, I agree. And I took a lot of great notes. The one thing that sticks out, and I don't get a penny from from LinkedIn, but that gold chip that you get as you're retiring, just absolutely tremendous, Zach. Because you asked earlier, what have I been doing? So when I was taking the uniform off, I was doing a lot of auditions, and I was pursuing, documentaries, and things were going, really well. I had 2 strong ones. The Day the Music Died, Don McLean's American Pie, and Reinventing Elvis. And I was the military technical director on those. And I got a little bit of hardware back here because both of them gold tellies for documentary of the year. And things were going great. I wasn't getting any callbacks for auditions, and that's just the lay of the terrain. But then Hollywood went on strike, and then the actors went on strike, and all my projects kind of fizzled. And I had to pivot and pivoted to Parade Deck, and we can talk about that later on. But my point there is that you have to have a plan as you are transitioning, because it might not unfold the way you think it is while you're in uniform and getting that paycheck on the 1st and the 15th. So be prepared to pivot. But back to that LinkedIn piece, 85 to 90% of the work I was doing was through LinkedIn. So in the transition assistance program, in that course, they have you fill out your free LinkedIn gold chip for the year. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of that. It's free to you as a service member. It is worth its weight in that gold chip.
So there's a lot to unpack here. And the first thing I want to talk about is, there is no handbook when you get out. It really helps when you've got someone there that can mentor you and kind of talk you through the process and those type of things. Did you have a mentor before you got out, or as you got out, as you were talking to people? And usually it's not just one mentor. It's usually a couple different ones.
You're absolutely on target, Zach. And I had a few, several Marine general officers that had retired, a few colonels, my peers, and there were some junior Marines that were like you, entrepreneurs. Hey, that bridges right to your network. And I say it over and over and over, and I won't stop the broken record. Your network is your net worth. And not always going asking for money, because that's a real good way to turn folks off. But that network vectored me to some job leads. It vectored me to, hey, it takes a while in the entrepreneurial space to get the engines going. And it was just a great resource to help me maintain my sanity.
All right, so let's back up here. You've been waiting this whole time to get out there in the silver screen and in the small screen. You put everything together. You certainly got the look. You got the experience, and then the strike happens. Kind of reminds you of something happened right when you took command down at Parris Island. Talk about what you went through, because it's a pretty incredible case. Arguably one of the most impactful things that happened in the Marine Corps, and you were thrust right into that head first, weren't you?
Yeah, it was unusual, Zach, in the sense that in the Department of Defense, everyone kind of ramped down or shut down, and for Parris Island, we continued training through COVID. And I took command and came aboard as they just figuring out that one infected recruit can impact the whole company, sometimes the battalion. So we learned some lessons rapidly, and we were the only unit, and you can fact check me on this one, the only unit in the Department of Defense to displace and relocate 4 times during COVID. Out of that, probably about 24,000, 25,000 poolees, and I only had one kind of, I didn't necessarily lose track of him, but he got away from the operation.
He went a little UA.
I don't know if he was UA, but he got home. His mom gave me a call. I said, "Ma'am, I'm glad your son is safe. Give me your address so I can mail you his personal effects. T-shirt, green shorts, and socks." He got all the way to Buffalo.
Wow.
Unbelievable. But out of that, moving from Parris Island to the Citadel to Atlanta to Jacksonville, Florida, we had that one escape, and then we wrapped things up going from Jacksonville back to Parris Island to wrap up the task force.
What great training to have as a Marine, as an officer, as a member of the armed services, that the mission doesn't give a shit about all the other stuff. It cares about one thing. Are you accomplishing the mission or not? And you had a mission. You accomplished that mission just the same that you looked out into the civilian world for all these plans. And then all of a sudden the strike happens. You couldn't plan for that. But you know what? That's what we do. We just put our nose down and grind through. And, having that mentor to kind of coach you and to encourage you along that process, but also know that you're not alone. There's other people out there that may be struggling too, that can help make it not so lonely, I guess I would say.
Without question. And, Zach, I'm always time conscious, because that's the one thing that none of us can get back. So I've been running my mouth for about 9 minutes here. Why are you doing this?
So thank you, Riccoh, for bringing that up. My time in the Marine Corps could not have been more opposite than yours. It's a small amount of time, didn't do a lot. But when I got out, I was welcomed into the civilian realm with multiple people that helped mentor me. And I'm a firm believer that you can't climb the ladder. You have to get help being pulled up the ladder. And that's exactly what I did. I had people that gave me spiritual mentorship. I had people that gave me relationship mentorship. One of them actually introduced me to my wife, who we've been now just celebrated our 25 years of marriage and 28 years together. She still hasn't killed me yet. It's come close a couple times, but I can at least move and dodge the frying pan as she's throwing at me from across the room. But it was that mentorship that really put me on that projectile. I'll tell you the interesting thing, and you're one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is I didn't realize the power of being a mentor, not just being mentored. That was very impactful. When I met you and Sergeant Major Carter at Paris Island, and I felt maybe I've just got a little something that I could give these guys, because I've got a lot more experience than both of them do out in the civilian world. And if there is a way that I could help guide them and maybe give them a little bit of advice, what I didn't realize is how impactful that was to me, to feel like I was still not just contributing to the Marine Corps, but I was contributing to the Department of Defense and helping us, because our job as soldiers and airmen and Marines and coasties and guardians and the whole list is not just to be great at that. It's to be great Americans. And we owe that as our larger family of fellow Americans to do what we can to help bring that out. But what I was interested in is talking to you and hearing about your TAP program. And then my best friend and our fellow co-host, who will be joining us here in a couple of hours today, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver Stolle, who is still on active duty and actually picked up his retirement certificate today at the Pentagon, actually goes through his official ceremony next Thursday.
Okay.
He was really frustrated with the TAP program, and that it was what you said. It was just too much. He couldn't track it. And we realized, hey, there's a need here. There's an opportunity not to be in competition with the USOs of the world and the different veteran affair organizations at the state and local levels, not to be in competition with VFW and American Legion, but to complement them and to help bring someone to those meetings through that mentorship program.
And Zach, you're on target again. As I hammer through and wade through the social media, oftentimes quagmire out there, I always try and amplify and link together and connect, those various veteran organizations that are there for us: the VFW, the American Legion, the DAV, Military Basketball Association. All these entities are there to help the veteran community. And unfortunately, membership is down across a lot of those organizations because our generation and younger don't really see the value in it, and everything is on here. So if those organizations aren't meeting the service members, the veterans where they are, a lot of times they're missing the mark, and they realize that. So it takes a while to turn the ship, but I think we're a degree closer to getting the ship moving in a direction that younger veterans find attractive.
Agreed. So what are you doing now? Where are you living? What are you doing? Tell us a little bit about where you went from having all those strikes and all those, not doors shut in your face, but doors that just disappeared, to what you're doing now.
So as those things were dissolving, I turned to Parade Deck, which is probably the largest community of veteran content creators in the social space. And, partnered with a really savvy tech advisor, and he built the infrastructure, and I was the face of the organization. And we focused on, telling folks you're not going to be Oprah or Seth or Joe Rogan or any of those coming on the Parade Deck, but you can get into that community, and this iron sharpening iron, we can lift each other up. If you are interested in honing the craft of podcasting, or documentary filmmaking or any of that content, Parade Deck was a place for you. And in doing that, I did a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews. And through that network, once again, word got around as I was doing more auditions, and I was in New York auditioning for the Unbelievable with Dan Aykroyd. He's unpacking all these weird stories that are true, and he did a series on the military. And I went in and read, and they really liked my energy, and they had me read for the entire second or third season. My family, they've been calling me saying, "Hey, we saw you on the Unbelievables." I haven't slowed down enough, but word got around, and through that. That audition, and then Cheryl Cross, she's out in Hawaii, did a podcast similar like this with her, and just unpacked all the Hollywood stuff in the documentaries. And through her network, a person was working with Dr. Phil, and he was looking for a very specific type of person to be his chief of staff. Word got around, a couple phone calls were made, went in, did an interview with Dr. Phil, observed one of the shows, met with the staff, and a lot of good energy. That was like a Tuesday. By that Thursday, they gave an offer, mulled it over, prayed with my wife, and made a decision. End of the week, I told them yes. That following Monday, had butt in seat at Merritt Street Studios, and the rest has been nonstop since then.
So what is Merritt Street Studios?
So Merritt Street, it is the Plex is the name of the facility. It's 5 acres under roof. And after 22, 23 years on the Paramount lot, Dr. Phil was done. He was done with daytime TV. They tore down his stage there. But he was watching the news and not real happy with the state of how news was being presented. Biased left or right, and he was having dinner with his bride, and she was like, "Stop talking shit about it and do something about it." And he was like, oh, damn, sweetheart. No, stop complaining, do something about it. And from that challenge, Merritt Street Media was born. I haven't been on deck with the team. I've only been with the team for about 10 months now, but celebrated a year on the air in April. And Dr. Phil has not slowed down. He wants folks to argue, take a stance, bring the empirical data, bring the metrics. Let's talk about it. It's okay that we have differing opinions. We can argue and still love each other. So that's in a nutshell what Merritt Street Media is doing. And Dr. Phil, we have morning news, shows in between, and evening news. And Dr. Phil Primetime is his transition to kind of shaking up the landscape of what primetime talk, television, interviews, podcasts are all about.
I love it. That's fantastic. Well, Riccoh, you and I had a great couple days earlier this week, walking the halls of the Senate, visiting the Library of Congress, meeting with some really movers and shakers in DC, and talking about the Warrior Legacy Network and what we're going to be doing with it. And kind of just give us a general overview. I mean, our main discussion was with the Senate Veteran Affairs Committee. Kind of share with our listeners what that meeting was like and what you think some of the outcomes were.
Well, I have to share with the listeners that Zach is being extremely humble right now, because I was his wingman. He put these things in motion, and it was by God's grace and the opportunity lining up, which money always returns, missed opportunities do not. Things lined up. I was in DC, and Zach said, "Hey," he was going to the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. I said, "Hey, brother, I got your back," plain and simple. And Zach laid out the vision for where we're going, because Zach understands and he's identified that we are not in competition with the resources that are out there for our fellow veterans. We are in collaboration. And the Senate Veterans Armed Services Committee understands the way Zach laid it out, hey, is too much. How can we fine tune, fillet, lay out some alternatives for our fellow veterans who have served honorably and want to get out and contribute again to the nation's greatness. And Zach was firing on all cylinders. He led the way, and I just amplified and took a lot of notes and clarified where we're going and what we're trying to do, because there is a need in our community. That week of fire hose is a lot. And if you have a plan, if you have a solid plan and enough time and a long enough runway, good for you. But if you don't, and you're running into some obstacles or some tripwires or some landmines, we want to provide some mentorship, some guidance, and some encouragement along the way.
So let's really get into what the Warrior Leadership Network is, because it's not a podcast. The podcast is one of the supporting tools there. It's an actual white labeled software program that's used by hundreds, if not thousands, of Fortune 500 companies. Think of it as Match.com, but for mentors. So the mentee fills out a questionnaire of all the things that where they want to live, what they want to do, what hobbies. It could be job focused. It could be just, hey, I need to find the local church in my area. And it's also for the spouses. Let's not forget about the spouses, because if there's any one group that's underrepresented and undercompensated during the military service is spouses, because they have to pack up and move every 2 or 3 years. Imagine if you're an attorney, if you're a office manager, if you're whatever, and every 2 or 3 years you reset your seniority again. It's tough. You know, when you move from one base to the other, you keep your rank. Well, your wife resets back to private every time. So it includes them. And what the mentor matching software does is it matches you. It's got a 98% match satisfaction rate on the algorithm. It sets you up, and then it has an AI tool that helps you with agendas and certain topics to talk about. There's a calendar integration that helps you set up time to meet. And then we'll also have these regional meetups. So right now we are in the pre-launch phase. The purpose of today is to get people to go visit our website, warriorleader.us/mentorship. Learn a little bit about the program. There's a questionnaire on there that we would really like you to fill out and just kind of share your experience in your transition process from taking that uniform off. That is one specific ask that we got from the House of Representatives Veterans Affairs Committee, is they want more data, more information that's out there. And the other thing with our current administration is they're really looking to privatize as much as possible. When the comment came up on Monday, what we want from them, it was a little heated, but I would basically said that, look, we want your money, but we don't want your help. And the reason we said that is if there's a way to screw anything up, it's have the government get involved. And they were very supportive and smiled a lot when I said that. I didn't know if they were going to throw me out of the room or call the Capitol Police on me, but they understand that because it's the private sector that is the one that really can get things done. And what better than a group of our fellow veterans that is very organically organized and put together. And I'm just so proud to announce that, you know, Riccoh is now accepted as our Chief Communication Officer on the Warrior Legacy Network. He's not just going to be our fellow podcast host, but he's going to use his incredible background. You may see over his right shoulder, for those of you that are looking online, he's got an Emmy there, the only Marine in history to receive an Emmy. And we're taking all that great PR marketing experience that he's got to help us share our voice and our message.
Well, Zach, you know, as always, you've been doing the entrepreneurial thing as long as I was in the Marine Corps. So I think it's a great yin and yang, and we're focused on the same target. That veteran, that transition window, that's the battle space. And, you know, from our lessons learned, the bumps and bruises and galvanizing a community to get behind making that transition a little less bumpy, I don't think we can go wrong putting a lot of energy and effort in there.
Well, stay tuned for many more episodes. This is just episode number 3 right now. We're going to have a lot of chance to talk to a lot of other people. Some of these episodes, Riccoh will be leading the podcast. Some of it I will. Some of it will be Oliver, and some of it will be all 3 of us, and sometimes maybe 2 of us. But stay tuned for the next episode. Be sure to follow us on our website, and we will let you know as soon as we officially launch the start of the Warrior Legacy Network. Riccoh, thank you for your time, sir.
No worries, Zach. Always here to help, brother. Thank you.
Semper Fidelis.
Semper Fi.
If you've worn the uniform and figured out how to make the jump into civilian life, or if you're getting ready to PCS to the civilian world, there's somebody right now who needs your story. Go to warriorleader.us/mentorship. Share your journey help the next one in line. That's what this is all about.